Okay, I am now going to record my lecture for Macbeth Act 4. We'll see how far I get. I like to try and keep these less than an hour, but one never knows for sure. There it is, Sparks Notes Macbeth, nice and easy. Again, from a teacher's perspective, this is an excellent resource for students to use to help them understand the literary text. It is not meant to replace the literary text. Well, there's only 3 scenes in Act 4. I may well get through the whole act in one push. So, in the previous act, of course, Macbeth arranged for Banquo's murder. He used the same tactics Lady Macbeth used on him with the murderers, questioning if they're men, and saying that if they hold a rank in the category of manhood that is better than the average rank of dog, like your basic mutt, or if they were indeed purebreds, then they would undertake this task. He also had convinced them that that Banquo was indeed the one guilty for their misfortunes, which they had originally thought was his fault. And of course, that is not the case. Well, it is the case, actually, which you had thought to be her innocent self. I don't trust anything Macbeth says, to be honest with you. So when he claims that he was innocent in this, I'm more inclined to believe that he was the one who actually reduced them to their current state of poverty and is now manipulating that, claiming it to have been Banquo so that they will go and murder Banquo. The murder of Banquo, I feel, is Shakespeare's climactic moment, because this is where things cease to work for Macbeth, cease to work in his favor, because he wanted Banquo and Fleance dead. But Fleance escapes, and then we have the amazing banquet scene where Macbeth is visited by Banquo's ghost, and he all but confesses to having murdered someone, and without actually naming a name, those in the room with him would know about Duncan's murder. They wouldn't know about Banquo's murder. So, he also, at the end of that scene, the famous banquet scene with Banquo's ghost, he tells his wife that he is going to meet with the witches to know by the worst means the worst. He needs sense of security because neither of them feel secure in their position as king or queen. A cavern. In the middle, a boiling cauldron. Thunder. Enter 3 witches. Again, nature in harmony with the actions of man. And what is happening is the harmony just happens to be cacophony. Thrice the brindled cat hath mewed. Thrice and once the hedge pig whined. Harp your cries, 'tis time, 'tis time. Round about the cauldron go, in the poisoned entrails throw. Toad that under cold stone days and nights has 31 swelter venom sleeping got. Boil thou first in the charmed pot. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a fenny snake in the cauldron boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog, wool of bat and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blind worm's sting, lizard's legs and owlet's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth, boil and bubble. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble. Scale of dragon, tooth of wolf, mummy's maw, Maw and gulf of the ravined sea, salt sea shark, root of hemlock digged in the dark, liver of blaspheming Jew, gull of goat in slips of yew, slivered in the moon's eclipse, nose of Turk and Tartar's lips, finger of burst strangled babe, ditch delivered by a drab, make the gruel thick and slab, and thereto a tiger's chaudron for the ingredients of our cauldron. Double, double toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. I'm going to stop here because I want to identify that everything that they are throwing into the cauldron has a association with something that is evil, and as well as hemlock, the root, insane root that drives the reason prisoner. They make reference to actual ethnic groups of people that in Shakespeare's day were deemed enemies of God, I guess, from the Christian perspective. And so, a liver of a blaspheming Jew. And then down here, the nose of a Turk, a Turkish man, and Tartar's lips. These were most likely Muslim or Islamic. And so their faith and the faith of the Jews clashed with Christianity, which, being a Christian perspective, Shakespeare would then have the witches using all of these different references, including people that his contemporaries would agree that they were that placing parts of their bodies was as appropriate as placing in a scale of a dragon or a tooth from a wolf. Enter Hecate and the other three witches. Oh, well done! I commend your pains, and everyone shall share in the gains. And now about the cauldron sing, like elves and fairies in a ring, enchanting all that you put in. And then there's music and song, and the witches dance around the cauldron, and they add to the charm of all of the evil they have thrown in. And the second witch has a signal that informs her that Macbeth is on his way. She says, by the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Open locks, whoever knocks. So now again, everyone refers to Macbeth as one who is wicked. How now, you secret black and midnight hags, what is it you do? A deed without a name. I conjure you by that which you profess, howe'er you come to know it. However, he doesn't care if it's good or evil. Answer me. Though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches through the yeasty ways, confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germans tumble all together, even till destruction sicken, answer me to what I ask. This harkens back to when he said all things will crumble before him. His needs are to come before all other aspects, and it's a whole sense of let chaos and calamity strike the earth. I don't care. You're going to tell me what I want to know. My needs are paramount. Which kind of takes us back to that Hecate speech when she said, you're playing with a spoiled brat. Even still, this was something that was pulled out of his character through the prophecies and their harping on his ambition. So he demands that they speak. Answer me to what I ask. Speak. Demand. We'll answer. Say if thou hadst rather hear it from our mouths or from our masters. Call him. Let me see him. Pour in sow's blood that hath eaten her 9 farrow, grease that's sweatin' from the murderer's gibbet, throw into the flame. And this is what they add to the children to bring their masters, the higher demons, I guess, or I don't know, lower demons. Maybe the hierarchy is opposite to what our hierarchy is. A sow's blood, so a mother pig who has eaten her piglets. So she is therefore an evil creature. So her blood is tainted by her crime. Grease that's sweating from the murderer's gibbet. And that, of course, is the noose and his being hung, and the sweat that has greased up the rope. And they extract that and throw it into the flame. So two very evil things: grease from a murderer, or in this case, sweat from a murderer, and the blood of a mother pig who ate her piglets. Come, high or low, thyself and office deftly show. Thunder, first apparition, an armed head. Now, the appearance of the apparition is important. If I were to open up another tab and go to images and put in first apparition, armed head, and what we're going to see, here we have an armed head, here again, here. This one has the blood that's accompanying it. The armed head here, again, is bloody. And that is reflective and prophetic. It is foreshadowing something in the future. Tell me, thou unknown power. He knows thy thought. Hear his speech, but say thou not. Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth. Beware, Macduff. Beware the Thane of Fife. Dismiss me. Enough. And then the apparition descends back into the cauldron. Whate'er thou art, for thy good caution thanks. Thou hast harped my fear aright. Your caution I take to heart, and I thank you for it. You have touched my fear. Now I know that I have to watch out for Macduff. Macduff, who is the Thane of Fife. But one word more. He'll not be commanded. Here's another, more potent than the first. Thunder, second apparition, a bloody child. Okay, so let's go in here. Here you see the baby. Here you see a little child. Let me just go up to second apparition, bloody child. And what comes up, okay? Infant, vision number 2. This is a little closer to it. The bloody child. I'm actually disappointed with the imagery that's popping up here. I've seen so much better images that have come forth for Macbeth, for the bloody child. Think of a newborn covered in its mother's blood. Macbeth, Macbeth, Macbeth. Had I 3 ears, I'd hear thee. Be bloody, bold, and resolute. Laugh to scorn the power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. So, from just the phrase "none of woman born," I think of a newly born child, and it's covered in blood. Now, none of woman born shall harm Macbeth leaves Macbeth feeling invincible. The first thing he says is, "Then live Macduff, what need I fear of thee?" Because everyone was born of a woman. But yet, I'll make assurance double sure and take a bond of fate. Thou shalt not live. But it doesn't matter. I don't care if you can't kill me, that no one can kill me because of the mother born thing. I'm still just going to make sure and ensure that you die. I'll take a bond of fate. You will not survive. That I may tell pale-hearted fear lies. That way I can stop these fears and tremblings that I have. Now, thunder, third apparition, a child crowned with a tree in his hand. And that's actually a really good image for it. This is kind of cute. Not the best drawing in the world. Does this little guy have a tree in his hand? I don't see it. A child crowned with tree in hand. Each prophecy, each apparition states a truth to Macbeth. Remember when I told you that word equivocation is going to be very, very important? He is being given half-truths in this scene, and he doesn't see it. When he hears the first apparition, beware Macduff, he's like, yep, you're dead on about that one. I will make sure that guy is dead. And then the second apparition, none of woman born can harm thee, this bloody child. He's going, and I don't have to worry about Macduff, but, just to be safe, I'm going to make sure he dies anyway. Third apparition is a child crowned with a tree in his hand. Each of these are significant and will play themselves out in Act 5. What is this that rises like the issue of a king and wears upon his baby brow the round and top of sovereignty? Listen, but speak not to it. Be lion-mettled proud, and take no care who chafes, who frets, or where conspirers are. Macbeth shall never vanquished be until great Birnam Wood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. Descends. Again, the confidence, the swell of confidence that he has as a result of this apparition and the previous one. Well, that will never be. Who can impress the forest, bid the tree unfix his earthbound root? Sweet bodements good. Thank you for your prophecies. They are truly good news. Again, he's only hearing what he wants to hear, and they have worded them in such a way that he will only hear what he wants to hear. There is another side to these prophecies that we won't know of until we get into Act 5. Rebellious dead, rise never till the wood of Birnam rise, and our high-placed Macbeth shall live the lease of nature. I'm going to live to my old age, pay his breath to time and mortal custom. Yet, now this is where Macbeth kind of pushes things a little too far. Yet my heart throbs to know one thing. Tell me, if your art can tell so much, shall Banquo's issue ever reign in this kingdom? This really bothers him. We know this bothers him because of his soliloquy in the beginning of Act 3, before he met with the murderers, where he talked about how he sold his soul for Banquo's issue, how he poured rancors in the vessel of his peace, so he's living in a state of anxiety for Banquo's children, and how he has gone insane for Banquo's children. He doesn't want them to reign. He wants to be told in as positive a manner as the other apparitions have been, that this isn't going to happen. And the witches warn him, seek to know no more. I will be satisfied. Deny me this, and an eternal curse fall on you. Now here's irony. He's cursing eternally agents of the devil. They are eternally cursed. They're doing the devil's bidding. They are eternally cursed. He can't curse them eternally. Let me know. Why sinks that cauldron? And what noise is this? Show, show, show. Show his eyes and grieve his heart. Come like shadows, so depart. A show of 8 kings, the last with a glass in his hand, followed by Banquo. Now this is the stage direction, but do we need it? Because listen to what Macbeth says. Thou art too like the spirit of Banquo. Down, thy crown doth sear mine eyeballs, and thy hair, thou other gold-bound brow, is like the first. A third is like the former. Filthy hags, why do you show me this? A fourth? Start eyes. What? Will the line stretch out to the crack of doom? Another yet? A seventh? I'll see no more. And yet the 8th appears, who bears a glass, which shows me many more, and some I see that twofold balls and treble scepters carry. Horrible sight. Now I see 'tis true, for the blood-boltered Banquo smiles upon me and points at them for his. It's all there. One at a time, kings pass him by, all looking like Banquo, all clearly sons, descendants of Banquo. He curses them for showing him this. Why did you show me this? Well, you asked. They warned you. You didn't listen. And he says that the sight sears his eyeballs. It burns his eyes to have to see this. And the last one, the 8th, appears, and it's holding a mirror. There have been, with in between 2 mirrors where the line, where you stand there and you see yourself mirrored in the mirror image, and it looks like eternity. That's what Macbeth is seeing in the mirror of the 8th king. And what I find fascinating about this is that Shakespeare wrote this play during the reign of King James. And King James was very superstitious, and that's why all of the witches were brought in, because he believed he could identify a witch. And he, so this whole supernatural quality was partly to appeal to his interest, and he was a descendant of Banquo. So this is also a very politically correct maneuver where he is telling his sovereign that his line will rule forever. And I'm not 100% correct, but 100% sure, but I do believe that this is the line that is still on the throne today. The apparitions vanish. Was this so? Aye, sir, all this is so. But why stands Macbeth thus amazedly? Come, sisters, cheer we up his sprites, and show the best of our delights. I'll charm the air to give a sound, while you perform your antic round, that this great king may kindly say, our duties did his welcome pay. There's music, the witches dance, and then vanish. And of course, do we need this? Because she says, I'm going to make music, we're going to perform our antic, and then he says, where are they? Gone. So they disappear. So everything that is written here is written here and here. Let this pernicious hour stand aye accursed in the calendar. Now this, of course, is dramatic irony, because he is cursing the very moment he went to the witches himself. He hears a sound, come in without there. Or Lennox had come with him and is waiting patiently outside. What's your grace's will? Saw you the weird sisters? No, my lord. Came they not by you? No, indeed, my lord. Infected be the air whereon they ride, and damned all those that trust them. So, lovely curse against the witches and all those that trust them. He's just damned himself because he trusts them. He believes in what they said. He is safe, that he can't be killed, because no man of woman born can harm Macbeth, nor can he be overthrown or defeated, because that can't happen until Birnam Wood do come to Dunsinane. I did hear the galloping horse. Who was it come by? 'Tis 2 or 3, my lord, that bring you word. Macduff is fled to England. Now, just in the previous act, at the end, Lennox informed us that Macbeth was told of this and how he started to prepare for war. Now, it's not unusual for a author, playwright, to play with time and flip things chronologically. So he said it in Act 3, the end of Act 3, and at the top of Act 4, Macbeth is learning it for the first time. Unless Macbeth is really so having lost it that he has to be told the same thing over and over again. But I think it's more that Shakespeare was playing with the chronology, because a good plot does not have to be chronological in order. The flipping of events can actually provide greater meaning. What's that movie? That wonderful movie with John Travolta about the gangsters. I can't remember what it's called now. It was like one of his comeback movies. A John Travolta movie. John Travolta movies. Oh, I should have gone for the one in order. Let's go back. Because this movie is a good example of playing with where's John Travolta's movies in order? Oh, I can't remember. Unfortunately, I'm wasting too much time trying to figure this out. So playing with chronology, I think, is far more interesting. So, Macduff is fled to England. Fled to England? Ay, my good lord. Time, thou anticipatest my dread exploits. The flighty purpose never is overtook, unless the deed go with it. From this moment, the very firstlings of my heart shall be the firstlings of my hand. And even now, to crown my thoughts with acts, be it thought and done. The castle of Macduff I will surprise, seize upon Fife, give to the edge of the sword his wife, his babes, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. No boasting like a fool. This deed I'll do before this purpose cool. But no more sights. Where are these gentlemen? Come, bring me where they are. So, in a previous scene, he told his wife that he's going to act on impulse. He's going to, as soon as he comes up with a thought, he's going to turn it into action. Part of evidence of his growing insanity. And he makes the same announcement to Lennox. And to prove that this is going to be the case, he immediately acts upon the thought that comes into his head when he learns that Macduff has fled to England. England means Malcolm, meaning Macduff is going to join with Malcolm and try to dethrone him. And so, as an act of vengeance, an act of revenge, an spontaneous, brutal, evil thought, he is going to have the castle of Macduff attacked and put to the sword, murder his wife, all of his children, and all unfortunate souls that trace him in his line. He is going to wipe out everyone with Macduff blood, which shows us just how extreme Macbeth has become. And we have a transition from that into the scene with Lady Macduff, her son, and Ross. Now, this is the only scene Lady Macduff appears in, and her son, they have this lovely little dialogue, which, you know, what's the point? Why have this long dialogue between mother and son when the whole point behind this scene is for the murderers to come and kill them? What that scene does is it really creates a sense of sympathy in the audience for Lady Macduff and her child. It opens with Lady Macduff talking to Ross, being very angry, quite bitter that her husband has abandoned them, and Ross is trying to calm her down. This is also a scene where people sometimes think Ross is a double agent because they suspect that he comes back immediately afterwards or shortly afterwards as the messenger warning her. What had he done to make him fly the land? You must have patience, madam. Well, he had none. His flight was madness. When our actions do not, our fears do make us traitors. You know not whether it was his wisdom or his fear. Wisdom? To leave his wife? To leave his babes, his mansion, and his titles in a place from whence himself does fly? Oh, he loves us not. He wants the natural touch. For the poor wren, the most diminutive of birds, will fight her young ones in the nest against the owl. All is fear, and nothing is the love. As little is the wisdom where the flight so runs against all reason. There's nothing wise about what he did. He left me, his children, everything in a place where he feels he needs to escape from. That's not love. And she compares him to a wren, who, a very small, weak bird, will fight with fever against an owl that tries to attack her children. And so she sees little is the wisdom where the flight so runs against all reason. My dearest cubs, I pray you school yourself, but for your husband. He is noble, wise, judicious, and best knows the fits of the season. Trust your husband. He knows what he's doing. I dare not speak much further, but cruel are the times when we are traitors and do not know ourselves, when we hold rumor from what we fear, yet know not what we fear, but float upon a wild and violent sea, each way and none. We are all living in dangerous times and living in great fear. I take my leave of you. Shall not be long gone, but I'll be here again. Things at the worst will cease, or else climb upwards to what they were before. My pretty cousin, blessings upon you. Hope for the best. When things are at their worst, there's only one way for them to go, better. Fathered he is, and yet he's fatherless. I am so much a fool. Should I stay longer, it would be my disgrace and your discomfort. I take my leave at once. He's almost at the point of tears. Why? Why is Ross almost at the point of tears? This might be the question being asked by those who interpret him as a double agent, aware of what is about to take place, but not being able to do anything about it because he serves both Macbeth and Malcolm. Or he is upset to see his cousin so distraught. Sirrah, your father's dead. Now we have the little tete-a-tete between mother and son, which endears these two to the audience, which will make Macbeth's crime all that much more heinous. It's one thing to say he's going to murder women and children. It's another thing to actually witness it on stage. Sirrah, your father's dead. And what will you do now? How will you live? As birds do, mother. What, with worms and flies? With what I get, I mean, and so do they. Poor bird, thou'dst never fear the gnat nor lime, the pitfall nor the gin. Why should I, mother? Poor birds they are not set for. My father is not dead, for all your saying. Yes, he is dead. How wilt thou do for a father? Nay, How will you do for a husband? He's a saucy little thing, and he's having a little battle of wits with his mother, and she can play with him, and so she's. It seems like it would be cruel, but the boy knows his father's not dead, and he's teasing his mother as much as she's kind of teasing him. And this little tete-a-tete between mother and son, showing how they love to play with one another and their ability to banter, makes the audience fall in love with them fairly quickly. And Shakespeare has to get them to fall in love with these two very quickly because they don't have that much time on stage. Nay, how will you do for a husband? Why, I can buy me 20 at any market. Then you'll buy him to sell again. Thou speakest with all thy wit, and yet I faith, with wit enough for thee. Was my father a traitor, mother? Now he's trying to be a little serious. Aye, that he was. What is a traitor? Why, one that swears and lies. And be all traitors that do so? Every one that does so is a traitor and must be hanged. And must they all be hanged that swear and lie? Every one. Well, who must hang them? Why, the honest men. Then the liars and swearers are a fool, for there are liars and swearers enough to beat the honest men and hang up them. This is a boy with a fairly clear, keen insight into the world around him. They're surrounded by liars and swearers everywhere he turns. And if there's so many of them, why would they put up with the very few honest men that are around that would threaten to hang them? Oh, now God help thee, poor monkey. But how wilt thou do for a father? If he were dead, you'd weep for him. If you would not, it were a good sign that I should quickly have a new father. Oh, poor prattler, how thou talkest. He is winning in this little battle of wits, which makes him even more endearing to the audience. Enter a messenger. Bless you, fair dame. I am not to you known, though in your state of honor I am perfect. I doubt some danger does approach you nearly. If you will take a homely man's advice, be not found here. Hence with your little ones. To fright you thus, methinks I am too savage. To do worse to you were fell cruelty, which is too nigh your person. Heaven preserve you. I dare abide no longer. So this complete stranger, this man who's masked, probably covering his face with his cloak so she can't see who he is, and because she can't determine who he is, some people assume that he's Ross. He warns her, says she is in danger, that she needs to take her children and run. And he knows how dangerous this location is. I dare abide no longer. He takes off. Whither should I fly? I have done no harm. But I remember now I am in this earthly world where to do harm is often laudable, to do good sometimes accounted dangerous folly. Appearance versus reality. Fair is foul, foul is fair. Where to do harm is often laudable. Foul is fair. To do good sometimes accounted dangerous folly. Fair is foul. This is the world she's living in, where those who are good are the enemy, and those who are evil are the ones in power. Why then, alas, do I put up that womanly defense to say I have done no harm? It doesn't matter if I've done no harm. I'm living in a world where to do no harm is not necessarily a good thing. Enter murderers. What are these faces? Where's your husband? I hope in no place so unsanctified where such as thou mayest find him. Evidence that she still loves her husband. She was angry with him, but that doesn't mean she doesn't love him. When the murderers come and say, where is he? Where will I find him? She says, I hope you in no place so unsanctified where thou may find him. That he is in no place that where these men would normally be, because they are evil. They are unsanctified. He is a traitor. And now the son defends his father. Thou liest, thou shag-haired villain. The murderer stabs him. What? You egg, young fry of treachery. You egg. He's an infant. He's, the egg is, what matches and bangs with the sperm to create the fetus, to create the child. So he is reducing him in age. Now, do we have to know that? Do we need that stage direction? No, because the son turns and says, "He has killed me, mother. Run away, I pray you." It's very hard for students to envision this as a serious line. A lot want to laugh, and it's a hard one for a young actor to have to do as well, because the lines, they're not comical. This is a boy who's been stabbed in the stomach, and it's going to take him a little bit of time to die. He's not going to die instantly. I read the Da Vinci Code, and apparently if you stab someone in the stomach, according to the Da Vinci Code, it could take up to 15 minutes before you kick off. He dies a little faster than that. Exit Lady Macbeth crying, murder, and followed by murderers. Now the Polanski version is brutal. Absolutely brutal. It, with this scene, with the murders and the rapes, and he really captured the essence of what Shakespeare was suggesting would happen at that time. Okay, there's only one scene left, but it's a really long scene, and it's a really, really important scene. And that's the scene with Malcolm and Macduff. So I'm going to leave that for the next video lecture. So I'm going to stop recording.